I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Courtside with Coach Crist show. I'm Steve Crozier, sitting in for Coach Crist, who's away today. And to my right, far right, is Dave Gorby, my co-host. And we're finishing up here today in Jackson County at Scott Ludwig's 2081 Roadhouse. And this is our second Jackson County series of interviewing prominent Jackson County citizens in athletics, players, coaches, administrators, community people and stuff. And to my right, we have Terry Landies, a 69 Ripley high grad. And me and Gorb, maybe Gorb can tell you, we were out there looking at the picture just a minute ago. Dave pointed out Terry's picture, and did you notice the combination? 4 years West Virginia Wesleyan football player, linebacker, quarterback. Now that's a pretty good combination.
Yeah, you don't get too much of that anymore, So I guess the NIL deals wasn't come running towards you, huh?
No.
But in this restaurant, and even behind us, as you can see, these are famous Jackson County baseball, football, basketball. We were looking at a picture in front of me with Sedale Threet, that played at West Virginia Tech, 15-year NBA career, was posing with the owner here, Scott Ludwig, and we were just talking about that, saying these type of guys, Sedale Threet, they don't get to small colleges now because of all the overexposure and everything. But first question, Terry, we had talked back in the fall, and actually, when I talked to Scott, I said we're going to come back, okay? And we'd been here in September, and I kind of wanted to try to get here before Christmas. Coach Crist's work schedule, he started working up in Morgantown and everything. It kind of kept getting pushed back. But when I asked Scott, I said, Scott, we had Mick and Brian Canterbury and Mick Price on with Scott and Randy Anderson. And I said, I know Bryce Casto. I worked with Bryce at South Charleston High School. And I said, I know Ray Swisher. I know of Kenny. And I said, give us another guy. And it was with no hesitation. He goes, you got to talk to Terry Landies. Terry Landies. So I think I called you, me and you talked a little bit, and you probably thought, well, this is never going to materialize. Well, here we are today, February the 10th and everything. And our guest today is Terry Landies, a 1969 graduate of Ripley High School. And I'll ask you, Terry, tell us a little bit about yourself first. Ease into the things a little bit. You're from here. You went to school in Ripley.
Well, I'm not really sure what to say about myself, because I always feel like when you're talking about yourself, you're bragging about yourself. So I've always been hesitant about that, but I am a 1969 graduate of Ripley High School. Very proud to be a graduate of Ripley High School. Have spent most of my life, except for my years in college, at West Virginia Wesleyan, and then I did work at Wesleyan for 3 years as a recruiter, an admissions counselor, when Jay Rockefeller was president at West Virginia Wesleyan. So that was a great experience. But I always wanted to be a teacher. And when I was in 6th grade here in Ripley, I wrote a paper, which I still have. You know how when you're a kid, the teachers always say, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
Well, I wrote that I wanted to be a 6th grade teacher because Mrs. Smith was my teacher at the time, but I just wanted to be like her and all the other people I knew. My dad was never very happy with that. He wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or an Indian chief, something along those lines. But I always wanted to be a teacher. And even when I was working at Wesleyan with Jay Rockefeller, a little angel on my shoulder, or whatever, maybe a devil, I don't know, kept saying, you want to be a teacher. We want to be a teacher. And so I came back to the county, and I taught here for 31 years after that.
That's funny you say that, because my mom retired from Putnam County, and they actually lived up on the ridge here behind Walmart. I think she subbed here in Jackson County. Heck, you may have came across her. Name is Mary Crozier. But she said the same thing, like, don't be a teacher, and everything. And I went ahead and was a teacher. My
Right.
dad was a truck driver. So, for me, it worked out good. She was always pushing the academics. And if I got out of line, then, obviously he was going to discipline me and stuff like that. But, and I'll ask Gorbis, the amazing thing is, like I said, outside of Randy, and I know Randy came back here for a period at Ripley, all these guys have came back and gave to the community, which I think is super. I mean, obviously, like I said, Ripley is a great community and what I categorize as like a community school. But, you don't see that very often. Like people that were successful here, they usually go out and abroad.
Right.
They may come back and retire here, but, I mean, these guys came back and actually helped keep moving that wheel forward,
yeah.
working with the kids and stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I was saying with the Swisher brothers, Ripley is very common to Oak Hill being a small community school, and you can't. I'm trying to gain my thoughts right here. But like what he's done, to come back and, like you said, pay it forward to the community itself.
I'm sure you're at Oak Hill now, Gorb. I'm sure you may have one or two guys that's probably Oak Hill guys that help you guys in coaching or something, around in the athletic program.
Well, I just the head coach right now, Benitez Jackson. He's an Oak Hill guy.
Right.
He came back. He did his schooling. He came back.
Right.
And he was a guy. Even though I was a Mount Hope guy, Oak Hill basketball has always been
Right.
top notch. And he was a guy I looked at, like I grew up watching.
Right.
And Mount Hope would have a few guys, but Oak Hill they were top notch in Fayette County. They just had to deal with Beckley all the time. That was the thing.
Right. That was a big chore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can remember. I'll throw you one name. We'll get back to Terry. When I was in high school, we got beat by North Fork. We'd mentioned doing that show this summer when they have their reunion 3 times in that eight-year streak. I was at Winfield. They beat us 3 times in the finals. They won it 8 years in a row. But the year we did not go was my sophomore year in '78. Earl Jones beat us.
Yeah.
Mount Hope.
Yeah.
He basically
Yeah.
beat us.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about. Like I said, we're reading out there. 4 years at Wesleyan, quarterback, linebacker, and stuff. Obviously, and I think you had mentioned to me at Ripley, were you the first team All-State football player at Ripley? Tell us a little bit about Ripley.
Well,
and then we'll go to Wesleyan.
I was the first AAA all-state player at
Gotcha.
Ripley High School
Wow.
because
Okay.
up to that point we were AA. My senior year was the first year we were AAA.
Right.
So the competition increased not only in football but in basketball. When I was at Ripley with Kenny, each year we had a different football coach, a different basketball coach, and a different baseball coach.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
not too many people can say that, but they were all good men. And to this day, those of them who are still with us, they're very important to us. And I just saw Coach Schur, who was our senior basketball coach, and one of the assistant coaches earlier today. And it's just like, well, there you are, and you were so important to us. And in the back of my mind, when I had these men, I always felt like I wanted to do something like that too. I didn't really want to be a coach. I wanted to be a teacher first.
Sure.
And when I was a coach, for many years I coached basically at the middle school level. I was with Kenny for a couple years at Ripley High School as his assistant. Then when he resigned, I took the program over for 3 years. But basically my 28 years of coaching was at the middle school level with girls.
Right.
And it was just a passion I had. I didn't have any girls. I had 2 sons, so that was it. But when I was here in Ripley, I was fortunate enough to play with very good football players.
Head coach then.
Head coach my
Your senior
senior
year.
year was Ernie Moore.
Okay. For some reason, I guess Marino didn't come till
No,
later,
he
did
was
Okay.
he was well past me.
Okay.
But I was good friends with Frank, and he tried to get me to be one of his assistants on many occasions. But I just knew that coaching football in high school, that was probably not for me.
I got a 1969 question, not to date you, but a 1969 question from a good friend of mine. You'll know the name when I mention it. I went to Winfield. This guy went to Winfield.
Jim Lett.
Jim Ladd. Yeah. I asked him, I said, how'd y'all do in football? He goes, we went 30-0, 10-0 my sophomore year, junior year, senior year. He's first team All-State quarterback. I said, how'd y'all do in the playoffs? He goes, we didn't make it. They only picked 2 teams back in, Gore. You believe that? And they didn't make it. This guy goes, he leads the state in scoring in basketball. They didn't even have a baseball team, play American Legion baseball, goes to Kentucky, where my girlfriend, that's her daughter, they live in Lexington. And Let tells me, like, when he went on these visits to Kentucky, the football coach put him in a room with this other guy, and put his dad in the room with this other guy. So he walks around with the football coach. They get back together, they're driving down the road. His dad said, what do you think? Or Jim says, what do you think about Kentucky? He goes, that's where you're going. And I said to Jim, I go, who was your dad in the room with? He goes, Adolph Rupp.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
Back in '69, all right, with the 2-team playoff, what was y'all's record?
Well, we were 7-3 that year, but our big claim to fame here in Jackson County, for those people who are old enough to remember it, we beat Ravenswood the final game of the year in Ravenswood. They were 9-0, and we beat them 12-0. And that knocked them out of the state playoffs, which they would have won if they beat us, because there was a tie for second with 9-1. So there was no provisions made to have a playoff win. So Ravenswood would have been crowned state champ. So that's the one thing in Ripley that,
that's the one good thing.
Well, there's a lot of good things.
But that season,
but that's the one crowning kind of achievement.
Now, I'm going to say this. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to say it for the Gore, because I know he doesn't realize this. I do realize this. 77, my 9th grade year, we bring out 18 or 20 guys, and I mean, they were like Marines. They played for Leon McCoy, played Ravenswood, and Ravenswood beat us by 2 touchdowns. Jimmy Tribble was quarterback. We had 2. Our center and right guard went to Virginia Tech. I mean, they had studs. Winfield did. They were better. Correct me if I'm wrong. 73 AAA Ravenswood beat Stonewall, Jackson, or they win state championship.
Yes, I don't know that. I remember when they played. Now, I was out of the Jackson County for 4 years after I graduated, so I didn't really keep up with things. But I just know that that year in 1968, it was the '68 season. Yeah. When we beat them, on paper, the game should have been just a joke. But we had such great coaches who had done scouting. The one thing about my coaches in high school and at Wesleyan was, when I played quarterback, I called my own plays. We had a game plan, but I called my own plays. And I'll tell you this, just because Kenny was here. When we played Ravenswood, it was 6-0, and we were threatening to score, but we had run the same play because we just ran this power sweep kind of thing. Anyway, we'd run it for twice, and Ravenswood, by that time, they knew what was going to happen. We called it stampede right, stampede left. I flipped the ball back to the halfback, and I would lead the blocking, actually.
That's where around linebacker,
yeah, that's why I remember reading that. It said quarterback and linebacker.
So Kenny comes back to the huddle and says, "Hey, Terry, nobody's guard," because he's split in. He says, "Nobody's with me. They're not paying any attention to me." And I said, well, how about we have Jay Chambers just throw you the ball? So that was our play in the huddle. And I told the guys, that's what we're going to do. So we flip it back to him. Jay throws it to Kenny, and there was nobody within 5 yards of him. That was because my coaches put their trust in me and our team, not just me. I mean, we actually made up plays in the huddle there and at Wesleyan because when the situation came, we just didn't. But I always liked playing linebacker because it was so much better to be the hitter than the hit. Exactly. And not that I minded the contact, but I just got to play my sophomore and junior years at Wesleyan both ways. I didn't make all conference my junior year at linebacker. Actually, I will brag a little bit, but I was the NAIA Player of the Week on defense for 1 week when we lost to Salem 3-0. And they were ranked at that time in the NAIA, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics. That was schools like Fairmont, who was national champions. But I wasn't named Player of the Week in the whole United States, which was, at the time, it didn't really mean that much. But as I get older, those kind of things
Oh, no
do
doubt,
do
yeah.
mean more to me. But
How'd
you got
you
to be
get to
pretty old to
Wesleyan?
remember that. That's a long story. I was recruited by several.
I noticed a
bigger
lot of your
schools.
Ripley guys go to Glenville.
Yeah, I was recruited by Glenville, but I was also my first choice was I was going to Cornell,
Really?
Wow.
and because I liked the prestige of an Ivy League school,
No doubt.
and it was away from home.
Okay.
Well, when I visited there, it was great, except that they didn't have an education program. They wanted me to major in hotel management. That wasn't my. I mean, I loved it, but I didn't want to do anything like that. My second choice was Virginia Tech, but when I went there and saw them scrimmage in their spring scrimmage game, those guys were too big, and I mean, just fierce. And so my real desire was to go to WVU. And I did not get offered a scholarship there. They told me I could come as an invited walk-on, but I guess my pride got in the way. And then I somehow was led to Wesleyan, which was my church school, United Methodist. And the coach there would not let up. Wesleyan was terrible. And it wasn't like we were any much better the 4 years I was there. But once I set foot on that campus at Wesleyan, we drove into the administration office there. There's a circle in front of that building. I said, this is where I want to go to school.
Sure. It is
Because
beautiful.
It is,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You know, and I had been to Fairmont, I had been to Glenville, I've been to almost all the states and the colleges in the state, and there wasn't anything against them. It's just in my mind, that's what college looked like.
Sure.
And so I went there, and it was a good 4 years. I didn't regret it, except on most Saturday afternoons in the fall. But other than that, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, let's go back to Ripley. Played football. Play anything else?
I played basketball for 4 years, baseball for 3. I had knee surgery my junior year, which kept me from baseball and track. I did track. I did golf. Any sport, that's just the way it was back then. You know, I'm sure you know, especially in a town like Ripley.
Yep.
You didn't play one sport; you played all sports.
Right.
So, I was the leading scorer at Ripley High School till a few years back. I didn't really even know it until Mike Rubin. I don't know if you know that name, but he's a famous.
Yes.
Mike Rubin compiled my stats one time because at the high school they were trying to make a list of the top scorers, and he called me and he said, "Did you know that you're the leading scorer at Ripley High School?" I said, "No, I mean I know I scored a bunch of points, but anyway." Mike said, "Well, you are," and that was like 2 years later. It was broken by Russell Van Ness. And so I was the leading scorer for 20 years, and I didn't even know it. So I didn't get to enjoy it that much. But thank heavens for Mike. So
Yeah, I knew Mike, and knew another guy we've talked to from here is Mark Martin. Mark's tied up with Marshall now. You know, next time we come down here, he had mentioned to me, I talked to him last week on the phone about maybe in the spring, you know, getting Mark
Mark and I are good friends. Actually, I went to a girls basketball game and his ESPN telecast on Wednesday of this week.
Right.
So he's 10 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So he was growing up in Ripley when we were Kenny and I and Ray were growing up. So he can tell me a lot of things about Ripley sports. He can tell you a lot of things about any sport.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny, Terry, is, you know, we in between shows we go out and we're looking at the wall again, and Corp says, "That's how I remember Mark Martin." You know, like he's doing a game, Marshall game, then above him.
He's
Marietta College
he's
football.
the only one in here that has 2 pictures. You know, I don't. You know,
Well, I think that's because he bribed Scott, probably. I don't know.
but there's one guy that has the biggest picture
the
here.
biggest
Yeah, he got
Yeah,
the
you
biggest.
do.
I think that's because he made it big. That's what it was. Yeah.
But so your time at Wesleyan, you're out there in '73 with your teaching degree. Then you come back here immediately.
I came back here immediately and coached and taught 1 year.
Okay.
But then I had the opportunity to go back to Wesleyan to work with them and be a recruiter. I loved Wesleyan, I still do, and it was an easy job for me to go to high schools, talk to students, and tell them about my experiences. Plus the fact that I was in awe of John Rockefeller.
Sure.
And I got to work very closely with him in his 2 years there at Wesleyan. I was a recruiter in Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia, and parts of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Jay would fly to our alumni functions in the evening time, so I would like pick him up at the airport and take him to the dinner, and he'd do his thing, and then I'd take him back to the airport. But my one thing, can I tell you this one thing about Jay?
Sure.
Well, he loved to play racquetball, which I loved to play too.
Mm-hmm.
He really wasn't that good, but he was tall, and his arms would go all the way across. But I played with him because he was my boss, and plus I was in awe of him.
Right.
But one day when we were playing, he hit me right across the eye here, and I had to get 6 stitches across my eye. So, which, was not a big deal, but nevertheless, I had my wife take a picture of me laying on the couch in our apartment in Buchanan because I was convinced that Jay Rockefeller is going to be president. And I will have a picture of the president hitting me where he hit me above the eye. So it was a wonderful experience at Wesleyan for me. Like I said, except for those Saturdays in the fall, we did not do. I had these dreams that I was going to go there and lead them to great things, like we all do. But it's just like one of my friends said, and it wasn't that I was that great, but you can't win the Kentucky Derby with mules. And we're playing, I don't know if you were familiar with that period of football in West Virginia, Fairmont National Champs, Salem, Shepherd, West Liberty, all those schools were powerhouses. And I can remember my first college game at Wesleyan was against Fairmont. They had just, I think the previous year, they weren't in AIA champs, but the year before. And that was one of the schools that had recruited me. But my very first pass, see, this is bragging too, but my very first pass in college was against Fairmont State, and it was for 54 yards for a touchdown.
Wow.
They beat us, but that was a good start for us.
Yeah. I graduated from West Virginia State. I played for Cal Bailey, but I got inducted in their Hall of Fame in 17. But I'll tell you who they brought back was Colin Cameron.
Oh, yeah.
Colin was the head coach that you're talking about at Fairmont.
Yes.
So I know how good they are. And then I guess he gravitated to State, after Fairmont and stuff and everything. Okay, so you go back to Wesleyan. You work in the admissions office for a while, and then I guess you had an opportunity to come back here, teaching head of calling and stuff. Where was your first teaching job at in Jackson County?
Well, first, my 1 year was at Ripley Elementary School, and I actually taught with the people that taught me. And Mrs. Smith, my 6th grade teacher, was still there. But I found out that my philosophy of teaching was not really like the ladies at that time. It's just a long story, but we just had different philosophies on how to do things.
Right.
Plus, I was young. I wasn't married or anything. I had lots of time. I was living at home, so I wanted to spend a lot of time with my students, which through the years is what I tried to do anyway. And I'm so fortunate that, I've had a wife who supported me in all those things. We will be actually marking our 50th anniversary this year.
Congratulations there.
What's your wife do?
She was a speech pathologist here in the county for 35 years. So she was a teacher too, on the same schedule I was. But then when I came back, I went to Gilmore. It's a small school outside of town in Sandyville. And we had 2 grades in each one. That's when I started coaching again. And my philosophy about coaching, and it never changed, although I don't know that it was very popular. My philosophy was, if you come out for the team and you come to practices, you're on the team and you're going to play. So through the years, I just, because I always felt like in school, kids need to be part of something.
Right.
They need to feel like they are important outside of the classroom, and it's such a good social experience for most of them. So I never cut in 28 years of coaching. I never cut one person. 1 year the year before I retired at the middle school, I had 72 players. My last year, we dropped down to 54, but we played 66 games that year.
Oh, wow.
Including 4 against Oak Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and 3 of them were there.
Okay.
Because I had so many girls, I tried to divide them up into teams. You know, I called them my blue team, my gold team, my white team. And I would take those girls anywhere to play. We weren't always that good, but that last year that I coached in 2011, probably one of my best groups I had, but we played 66 games. We won 54, lost 12. And every girl played at least 4 minutes a game. That was my promise to them. If you dress, you're going to play 4 minutes. Now, I can't promise you any more, but I always promised the 4. And I kept with that. Now, it wasn't always popular with parents.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I never felt like it affected the better players because they practiced every day. The other kids I had to put on a rotating schedule because I had you only have one gym.
Right.
And I got 3 hours a day. That was it. So, but
That's girls basketball.
that's girls basketball.
Right.
I coached boys basketball only 1 year when I graduated from college right away. But I just felt like, I don't know, I always felt like girls weren't given the respect
Right.
that they should have back then. And it was like I guess a pride thing.
Yeah.
That I wanted them to be recognized as equals.
I was just about to say
to the
equal
boys.
opportunity.
Because, I mean, even at the middle school level, all those years, I always felt like the boys got everything. And so I don't know, I just enjoyed that. And many of those kids to this day, I'm still in contact with them, developed relationships that I'm happy with. And I've gone to weddings. I've gotten birth announcements.
Right.
I mean, because it's a small community.
Right.
That's what you're talking about. That's what it's important about Ripley. And I've never regretted living in Ripley and not going on to be that doctor or lawyer or Indian chief that my dad wanted. So
That's amazing because I had one child, a daughter. She graduated South Charleston in 2007, and when I was coming up, I was the baseball coach at South Charleston, and she played softball and was a cheerleader. After her 6th grade year, she came to me and said, "Dad, I want to start playing basketball." She goes, and what happened was, the softball, was just too slow for her. You go out and stand in the outfield. And she was a high energy type kid, so she starts playing basketball in 7th grade, and then, 7th and 8th grade, I noticed in middle school, she was, in particular, your inner city schools, kids that could get after you and stuff. She got mauled, and then her 9th grade year, she made the team at South Charleston. And she was the only 9th grader. They won it in 04. Alexis Hornbuckle was a senior.
Oh, yeah.
She dressed, and just being in practice with her. And then the next year, she started 3 years. The next 2 years, she was in the backcourt with Renee Montgomery, played at UConn and WNBA. And I could see each year, and she ends up signing. She played 4 years at Radford, which is really uncommon for somebody to get started. Especially in a major sport like football, basketball, baseball. Usually those kids have the background coming up. They may play multiple sports, but they're playing those and everything. But just to listen to you say that about the girls' sport, it really hits home with me because that's kind of what I say. Everybody wants to coach boys. Everybody wants to be in the main action. But, here's the thing that I like about girls. Normally, girls are more subordinate. They're more assignment-oriented. Guys, a lot of times, have bigger egos.
that's what I found out in 1 year. So I always went. It's interesting you say that. I coached. We played against Alexis Hornbuckle, and I think the other girl's name was Hargis. They had 2 of them.
Renee Montgomery.
No, she wasn't. Hornbuckle. They went. Didn't she go to Huntington East? Wasn't that where she was? I don't
Alexis Hornbuckle went to South Charleston. Yeah, the girl, yeah. And
okay,
then
well.
Renee Montgomery. But Alexis played for Pat Summit at Tennessee.
I knew that because Kenny and I took girls to basketball camp there.
Right.
When we were doing that. But we played. One thing about the girls was I taught at the middle school, so I'd see them. And I would talk to girls who, like, when they walked down the hall, because the band room was at the other end in a couple of the classes, you see a tall girl. And I'd say, "Hey, Patty, Jane, why don't you come out and play basketball for me?" "Oh, Mr. Landis, I've never played basketball." I said, that's okay. I can teach you some things about basketball, but I can't teach tall. And you're tall. I can't do that. But I always had two things in basketball with girls at this level, and that's where most of my experience was, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We had two things. One is that we never used the word can't in the gym. If someone said, I can't do that, I would immediately blow my whistle and say, they were taught this. What's the one word we don't use in this gym? And they'd say, can't. Right. And I said, what can we do? And they'd say, we can do anything. And then I'd say, okay, hit the line. And we would run. They didn't like that. Nobody does.
Right.
And another thing I would say to them is, what's the most important thing on the floor? And the answer was ball. Because girls have a tendency that if you are supposed to guard this person, that's who you guard.
Yeah.
But so we taught awareness of the
Right.
ball. But I'll tell you this funny story since I'm the one talking here. I had one young lady who came out finally in her 8th grade year. Great athlete, never played basketball, but just quick as a cat. And I wanted her quickness because we pressed and we did things like that.
That's something else you can't teach.
No.
Yeah.
And aggressiveness.
Yeah, right.
With girls,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So anyway, about midway through the season, we're practicing and we're going through some drills and stuff and we're scrimmaging. And then this young lady, she's got her man over here, but the person out front just went right past her. She's standing there looking at her. She went right past her and shot a layup. I blew the whistle, and I won't use her name, but she knows who she is because we still talk about it to this day. And I said, okay, what's the most important thing on the floor? And she looked at me, and you could see that she was bewildered, and she said, me? And I said, okay. The girls were all laughing. I said, let's go home, girls. That's enough for today. I had all kinds of experiences like that with girls in basketball. And, those kind of things, yeah, we did end up winning a lot of games. And we were not afraid to play anybody. We went to Fairmont. We went to Bluefield. Right. I took them anywhere that people would play us. Right. I used to send out letters just to ask teams to play us so we could get enough games. Right. And we got to the point where our girls were confident in their abilities that we could play with people. Maybe we weren't as good, but we weren't embarrassed to go play against them.
Sure.
So,
the question about your teaching career, did you tell me you started out in elementary and then you went to middle school?
I started out, my first year was in 6th grade. Okay. Then I taught 6th grade for almost the entire time, but 2 years I did teach 5th grade, my final 2 years. So, and that kind of philosophy that I had with my basketball teams was the same thing I tried to do in the classroom.
Sure.
I wanted the kids to feel comfortable. I wanted them to feel like they can do things. And even then, so many kids are come from one-parent homes.
Right.
Or even with their grandparents.
Right.
And they have a lot of struggles. Teachers today, they have a lot of struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know that I could be a teacher today because of all the things that they
Yeah,
have to
it's
go through. Or a coach.
It's just a lot, yeah.
Like you are.
Yep.
I mean, it's not just dealing with the athlete, it's dealing with their mind.
Yes,
And,
yes.
And
Mhm,
that's
correct.
a tough thing.
Correct. Yeah, and everybody, and being a human being, every single one is different. That's just how it is nowadays.
And you try, I mean, as a coach, you have to have like uniform kind of rules or guidelines.
Right.
But then we don't really seem to know what's going on at home.
Right.
We never
Yes.
truly know that. And it's difficult. Doesn't have anything to do with sports. Just has to do with being a person.
Right.
And trying to reach out to other people.
No, it is different types of challenges, and I think that's evolved through the years. It's kind of ironic. 2022 in the fall, you were up there, Gord, when you got inducted in Texas thing, and I heard Danny Schaefer say, and he's a minor league coach I work with in the Rays organization, and we work together in Princeton, and he said, when I first started coaching, I saw these young men. He worked a lot in AA and AAA, so they were probably in their late 20s and stuff. But he said, as I got older, and then we were at Advanced Rookie League, so most of the kids were between 18 and 21. He said, you know what? He said, I've got 2 boys and a daughter, and he said, these kids have a mom and dad. They're somebody's child. Meaning, what he was saying is, he took that in recollection too in his coaching philosophy. You know, whereas before he just saw him as an athlete.
Right.
You know, I'm going to teach you baseball. We're going to do it the Ray's way or whatever, and this is it. And as it, you know, then things come up. You know, here's you know, I think as you get older, you start seeing more of the bigger picture. Obviously, you coached them long enough, and you have more compassion towards, you know, your athletes and stuff.
Well, winning wasn't to me, and that's where I had conflict with certain parents through the years. Winning was our goal. I mean, no one likes to lose.
Right.
You always like to win, or you wouldn't be competing. But I also realize that you have to be realistic about some things. And like when I coached at Ripley High School with the varsity girls, when we're playing Ripley, we're playing Huntington East, Huntington High, Parkersburg South. There's not too many times that you're going to be able to compete against those people at that time.
Sure.
We eventually did, but it took 3 years.
Right.
And it took 3 years of non-stop work, not just on my part, but on the girls and their parents. But yeah, you know, it's in every sport here in West Virginia, there's only going to be one team that's happy at the end of the year.
Right.
And you have to deal with that. You know, Kenny had his girls so close so many times. It was just one hit here or one hit there. He could have won 6 or 7 state championships. Same thing with Ray.
Right.
And we've been that close, but ultimately you just say, wow,
Right.
we were in that position. We could have done that, but it just didn't happen.
Right, exactly. Right now, we're going to go to a short break, and we'll be back here with our guest, Terry Landies, here on the Courtside with Coach Crist show. I'm Steve Crozier. To my right, Terry Landies. Far right, Dave Gorby. We'll be right back.
Am I talking?
Reset Wrestling is coming to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. on the New River Network. See hard-hitting wrestling action from today's rising stars in independent wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan of any generation, let us introduce you to the hottest wrestling promotion in West Virginia. You can also join a live show at the Crossroads Mall. Retro Reset Wrestling is coming to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. on the New River Network. Retro Reset Wrestling is coming to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. on the New River Network. See hard-hitting wrestling action from today's rising stars in independent wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan of any generation, let us introduce you to the hottest wrestling promotion in West Virginia. You can also join a live show at the Crossroads Mall. Retro Reset Wrestling is coming to you every Thursday at 9 p.m. on the New River Network.
Steve Crozier back on the Courtside with Coach Crist show. We're here at 2081 Roadhouse in beautiful Ripley, West Virginia. Our gracious host, Scott Ludwig's, let us do our second series of chronicling Jackson County famous athletes, coaches, administrators, community people. Earlier today, we had Kenny and Ray Swisher on. Both of those guys, successful high school athletes, college athletes, came back in the community, taught school, still live here in the community, pillars of the community. And, with us here this afternoon is Terry Landies, and it's the same type of situation. Terry's had an illustrious career as a player, went to West Virginia Wesleyan, was, I think, early in the conversation, said he was Ripley's first AAA first-team All-State football player, played basketball, went to Wesleyan and played 4 years, quarterback, linebacker. and actually worked in the admissions office at Westland before he came back here and taught school and everything. And, seems like we're following in a pattern, these Jackson County guys.
Just come back. They come back.
Then they come back. They go away to school, they come back, and they coach the kids in the community. And I'll ask you this, and you seem like a very, I'll probably need more Terry Landis and Steve Crozier, laid back kind of guy, where I probably create some problems for myself being so fiery and everything. But, in a community like this, I think you heard the question when I asked both of the Swishers, obviously there's some positive things. You come back, the familiarity, some people and stuff, but sometimes that can work against you. If you're coaching, somebody's daughter or kid, I've always heard blood sticker, than anything.
Right.
And from a family perspective. So I'm sure, like I said, there's been some conversations with some parents and stuff. And then the other thing is, like I told you, everybody wants to coach baseball and football and boys basketball, and you had to love to coach girls basketball, but also at the middle school level, Gord's around the high school athletes, and, they're kind of, how boys are, they think, they know everything and stuff. And then the little ones, which, you taught for a while, they're very impressionable, but they need managed, and you're worn out if you're truly engaged with them. But you were in that middle school group, which is somewhere in between, so it takes a different skill set too. As far as working with them, they're not quite the big boys, but they're not that far removed from the beginning here at the elementary level.
Well, I always told people, they would ask me, why don't you want to be a high school principal? I mean, that seems like what they think every guy is going to be. If you're a teacher, you're going to be a principal, or you're going to be a coach at the high school level. I never had that ambition. I did have my master's degree. I almost had my doctorate degree, actually. So education was very important to me, and trying to maintain my level of education. But, yeah, I had meetings with parents regularly before the season started. I'm sure most coaches do.
Yep.
And I explained to them, and plus, after the first 2-3 years that I did this, people knew, and that's why I had so many girls come out for basketball, because they knew if they would do what they were supposed to do, they'd be part of the team. And I made sure that they got an opportunity to play. I'll tell you this real quickly, that there for 3 years in a row, we played in the over Christmas holidays. We played in a tournament at GW, 2 teams. We played 2 games at Chapmanville in their Christmas tournament, and then we would come back to Ripley and play whomever I could schedule. So we played 5 games each day for 3 days, and all 72 players got to play pretty much the same amount. Some parents didn't like that, but the better players always got to play 20 games. And the other kids, I just wanted them to be a part of something, to feel. And I always said, girls, it's a privilege to be a Lady Viking. It's a privilege to be at Ripley Middle School. It's a privilege to live in this community. And we need to treat it that way. And we did. I mean, I had the girls go to elementary school with Kenny's kids and put on little clinics. We marched in the Christmas parade. We put on skits and things. We had, just various things. And my older players would come back. Probably the best player I ever coached, Alana Sheets, went on to Rio Grande, she went to Shawnee State.
Okay.
She was amazing player. But she came back, and we had, in the summertime, we would call it a day with Alana. And Alana would bring back a couple of her players, and they would do a clinic for the kids.
That's good stuff.
And those girls, we were always willing to pay it back. And I feel like, even though Alana's she's 32, 33 now, if I called her, she lives over in Virginia, but if I called Alana and asked her, would you want to come back and help the basketball program, she'd do it. Right. Because even though these kids have moved away, people moved away from Ripley, it's still Ripley. And that's what makes it unique here. I don't know how to explain that, but it's a unique community, and the people in it, they're pretty understanding most times about girls. You never want to hurt their feelings, because you don't want to deal with the emotions. But I was not a yeller. I mean, I was at the beginning of my career. I found out that was really not my style. That's the way my coaches always were, and probably yours,
Right.
and probably yours. You know, that's just the way it was. But I didn't like it when I was an athlete.
Right.
You probably remember the name Corky Griffith.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Corky well.
Yeah.
He was my football coach my senior year, my baseball coach, and actually was my basketball coach for 3 games, but that's another story. But every day after football, I was almost ready to quit because if I stood in the pocket and threw the ball, I should have run it. If I ran out of the pocket too soon, in his opinion, I should have stayed there and made the pass. Same thing in baseball. If I made the cutoff, played center field. If I made the cutoff throw to second base, it should have gone to third or whatever. But it was that drive. I mean, that's what made Corky special. Other than the fact that he's probably crazy.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll test that.
Yeah. But it was different with our coaches then, and I found that style wasn't good for me.
Now I'll tell you one thing. When I just listening to you talk, Terry, when I first started coaching back in the middle '80s, you know, in Kanawha County, where I started, all the high schools, most of them had a pretty good football coach. Most of them had a pretty good basketball coach. There was a couple marquee assistants, you know, paying their dues, looking around, maybe being a head coach somewhere. We had South Charleston Junior High, Spring Hill Junior High. The head coaches there were pretty good, junior high. There wasn't, now, just like, you know, when I was talking to the Swishers, the coaching, nobody stays in it like you did, or the Swishers and stuff. These kids now, maybe they're smarter than we are. Who knows? But like, you know,
They are, I'm sure.
5, 6, or 7 years, and they're out of it. But you can't put a price on the Alana Sheets and some of these people you impacted 30 years in this community here that will come back and do those things, and they're spreading the, you know, the stories about Terry Landis and stuff. That's worth. There's no dollar value worth that to me.
No.
You know.
You know, you guys know, you don't be a coach to make money. You're not going to make any money. And if you figure out the number of hours that you put in, and so that 50 cents an hour
I don't
that
hear.
you make.
Is it 50 cents an hour?
Well, I mean,
yeah,
it's
right. I know what you're getting
it's
at. Yeah,
inflation now,
right. Yeah,
right?
right.
No, you don't do that. And I think what young coaches are finding out is there's more and more demands on them. And then they just decide, gosh, it's just not worth it. And they didn't, and I don't, I mean, you know, I don't think any less of them. I understand. You just got to, if you really want to be a coach and help kids, and that's what I think everybody should be doing, then you've just got to work at it. And there are many times that I was very discouraged.
Sure.
And I wanted to quit. And I would actually, a couple times I took a year or two off, but then it's in your blood.
Right.
You got to get back.
Right.
And I wanted to work with those kids. But I don't know. It's just, it's hard for young people today to do the things they want to do, like you. All the demands that are placed upon you, all the guidelines you have. The world has changed.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. I don't know if I could adapt to it very well.
Sure.
Now.
Now, I'll tell you one thing, like I had mentioned, you know, you had good assistants when I came in, good junior high coaches. I don't see that now. Ripley High School was very lucky because, one, not a lot of people like to work at the middle school level. Everybody wants to climb the corporate ladder and get up to the high school level, then go on to college and stuff like that. And to have a guy like you doing all these things with the girls, having camps and having functions and stuff, they were very lucky. But the varsity coach, name some of the varsity coaches that you worked under through the years, you know, at the girls level. That
The girls' basketball level?
Yeah.
Well, naturally, Kenny was when I was there, and Steve Hunt.
Steve, yep.
Yeah, Steve Hunt. My last couple years was under John Kennedy, and I did try to incorporate what those guys wanted to do within our program, so it would be a leading thing up to it. They didn't honestly most times agree with my philosophy about not keeping kids. I mean, not cutting kids. Not too many people do, but I sort of tried to stick by my guns, and I think it proved to them, if they think about it, that there was a couple of girls who had never played basketball until their 8th grade year, and they got so excited about playing, they became very good players at Ripley High School. And one of the girls, this is another story I'll never forget, her first year of playing, and she went on to be a really good player at Ripley High School and a great athlete. But it was her first year, and she was fairly tall. But she got, in her first game, her very first game, and I can see this still to this day, she got a rebound. She was so excited. She shot it right back up, put it in, started running down the floor, and looks over at me. And I won't say her name. She remembers it too, but I'll say, well, that was good, but our basket's down there.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
And so we talk about that anytime I see the young lady, and she's got 3 kids now, and 2 of her daughters play basketball. And she says, you know, Miss Landis, I use the same drills that you used with us when we were in 6th grade, 7th grade. I said, well, you didn't play for me in 6th and 7th grade. You only played 8th grade. But there's, you know, you got to give kids a chance at the elementary and middle school level, just like your daughter. You know, if they come out and they get cut,
Right.
middle school kids are not going to play.
No, try again. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to, because they don't want the embarrassment or the hurt
Right.
from being cut. And I mean, you know, I don't like that. My 2 sons were pretty good athletes. They weren't superstars or anything, but they played hard. They played to the best of their ability, and they were, you know, played very well at Ripley High School. Justin, my oldest son, was on Ray's 1997 championship team. He played second base. Jared was graduated in 2001, and that was a couple of lean years for Ray there. But they loved playing baseball for him. And so, you know, through the years, not only did I coach girls, but I did T-ball. I did minor league baseball. I did little league baseball. I did senior league baseball. But that's the way most of the people I graduated with who have kids, that's what you do.
Right.
So,
Well, I'll tell you what, I've worked a lot of professional baseball at the minor league level, and it's all about development. And listening to you talk, you get that because, you know, just like I said, what happens is, you know, if you catch somebody in 6th or 7th grade and you're not really sure, and then you keep those people going, it's just like in minor league baseball. They err to the side of volume. When I worked down at Gulf Coast League, we might have 40, 45 guys come out for a game because what will happen is in a year or two, that guy that you probably would have cut might be in AA or AAA. His arm's gotten better. He's suddenly hitting the weight room now. He's doing different things, and he's changing himself. And they've seen these guys that they've kept around that have made it up through the cracks and stuff like that, so nobody wants to miss one.
yeah,
So,
well, look at Brock Purdy
Right.
in the NFL.
Yeah.
He was very irrelevant.
Yeah.
If you didn't draft him, didn't give him a chance, you would look where would the 49ers be now. But I think it's very important at the middle school level.
oh, yeah, no doubt. I
That
agree.
you give kids a chance to be players.
Sure. I got one last question for you,
Okay.
Terry. What are you doing? What's Terry Landis doing now at this time?
Well, I am very involved in my church's food pantry program. I'm involved in the Ripley High School Alumni Association and do several things there. I've served in several capacities with that. I travel. My wife and I travel quite a bit. And as long as you young people keep working and paying in my Social Security, everything's going to be great. So keep doing it.
Yeah, I got you. I got your back.
We have been, just in the last year, we've been to Greece and we've been to Egypt, two of my lifelong dreams. When I got to touch the Great Pyramid, I'm thinking, wow, a little boy from Ripley, West Virginia is right here. Dreams do come true.
Right.
Our man Darren went to Greece there a year and 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Was it great or what? Yeah, it really was.
Where'd you go last year, Darren? Ireland? Last summer?
France, Belgium, Germany, and Luxembourg, and Austria.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
All in one. I've been to a couple of those, but not all of them.
Yeah.
We've done quite a bit of traveling. So we're usually only in Ripley about 2 weeks a month,
Okay.
because we are with our grandkids.
Yep.
And I have 6 grandkids, 3 in Atlanta with my oldest son Justin and his wife Amaris, and 3 in Cary, North Carolina, with my youngest son Jared, and his wife Vanessa. They have 1 girl, and 2 boys. So I've been very proud of my sons, because it just goes to show what kind of an educational program you have. Justin went to Georgia Tech on scholarship. Jared went to Duke. And Justin has been in Atlanta ever since. So that's been 23 years.
Right.
And he loves it. Jared loves being around. He lives in Cary, North Carolina, within 15 minutes of Duke. It's where he always wanted to go. And we were very fortunate that they did. And that's just, kids from Ripley can do great things and can be great things. And there are a lot of them that do. But there are a lot who want to come back home, and they can't come home because of the economic things, in not only in Ripley, but in the state of West Virginia. And that's what I wish people, our legislature, those kind of people, would work more on that. Let's keep these kids like you in the state so that our state can grow and we can just become better and better at things. But it's not happened yet, but that doesn't mean we can't keep that dream alive.
Sure. Well, like I said, it's second series here in Jackson County. Very successful day. We had Ray and Kenny Swisher. Now we're talking to Terry Landies and his journey through education, athletics, being here in the community. Now he's enjoying, his retirement and everything. And we'd like to thank you, Terry, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
At the beginning, you were kind of worried. I told you, anybody that's got the layers of things that you've done, we could talk all day. Gorb, I really appreciate you making the trip here, and our unsung hero, Darren McGuffin. Without him, none of this happens. He's got the equipment. He comes out here on his own accord, puts together a great production and stuff. We're very thankful for Darren, which allows us to go to these places like Jackson County. This summer we're aiming for McDowell County, trying to do North Fork basketball, which would be tremendous, and everything. But like I said, we really appreciate it. Hats off to Darren, and continued success, Terry. Gorb, we'll see you here soon. Coach Crist, be back next week. And this is Steve Crozier signing off on the Courtside with Coach Crist. So have a good afternoon. Thank you.